Hey everyone, it's Kong again with another episode of Should You Summon. Sorry I've been a little bit quiet this week. I thought I'd take the opportunity of the Thanksgiving long weekend to try to rest and relax as much as possible, but we're back in action now. So let's get right into this Langrisser Reincarnation Destiny banner featuring Mariel, Werner, and Patsyr running from December 2nd to the 15th. As a Destiny banner, as usual, the first SSR you pull is guaranteed to be one of these three heroes you don't already have. And they're all newer-ish characters, so a lot of people could probably snag someone here. After you pop your guarantee, or if you do already have all three featured heroes, it's treated as a normal rate up with a 20% off banner rate. So we'll get started with Mariel. Mariel is a healer DPS hybrid. She starts in healing mode with plus 50% to all healing effects, and she takes 25% less damage, but she deals half damage as well. The passive element of her 3-cost skill makes her automatically restore HP to the lowest two members of your team after each turn. After she initiates an attack, her healing mode switches off, so she no longer gets those passive bonuses and penalties, but instead she gets plus 3 mobility from her 3C, and she gets to act again. Her 3C attack strips 3 buffs, pushes the target back 3 spaces, and if the attack was guarded, it does extra damage. It also gives you a buff for your next action, giving you plus 20% damage and guard ignore. Her unique weapon, coming to global servers in January, gives her slightly faster cooldown on skills when she's in healer mode, and it gives her bonus damage dealt when she's in combat mode. She's a member of Legion of Glory, buffed by Ledin, Elwyn, and Grenier, and Langrisser Reincarnation, buffed by Ares and Hilda. For bonds, she unlocks the defensive bond for Suzette, and for her own bonds, she needs Light of Genesis for her defensive bond and Rosalia for her attack bond. Feel like we just saw those two on a banner not too long ago. For content, in PvE, she's on faction for Scylla, Hugin and Munin, and Sleipnir, but she's more of a playmaker, not necessarily designed for sustained PvE boss fights. So that said, she's definitely designed more for PvP. With a kit that lets her swing the momentum of a match, she can bide her time and get some passive healing in to support your main healer while waiting for an opportunity to launch her 1-2 punch. For availability, Mariel is scheduled to come back in late April on a Destiny banner alongside Licorice and Tsubame. So let's move on to Werner. Werner is all about mobility. After taking action, he boosts the mobility of up to 4 nearby allies by 1, and lets them move through 1 defensive tile with no penalty. His 3-cost skill switches in between combat modes, each with a different set of buffs. He has a speed mode, which gives him 3 more mobility and lets him attack first if he moves 4 tiles. He has an attack mode, which just gives him up to 15% damage dealt, depending on how far he moves before combat. And he has a defensive mode, reducing his damage taken, making it so he can't be displaced, boosting his counterattack damage, and healing him after he takes action. On top of all this, no matter what mode you pick, you gain an additional permanent plus 1 mobility and plus 5% to all non-HP stats, stackable up to 3 times. Finally, he has an attack that ignores guard if you move 10 tiles before combat, making him kind of a long-range pseudo-assassin. His unique weapon, coming to global servers in February, lets him ignore 1% of the enemy's defense for each block he moves before entering combat. He's a member of Empire's Honor, buffed by Bernhardt, Leon, Lance, and Rosenseal, and Langrisser Reincarnation, buffed by Ares and Hilda. For bonds, he unlocks the defensive bond for Hilda, and she's a tank, so it's an important one. For his own bonds, he needs Rosalia for his defensive bond and Leon for his attack bond. For content, in PvE, he's on faction for Valkyrie in the Eternal Temple and Sleipnir in Ancient Beckoning. Of course, being able to increase your whole team's maneuverability can definitely make him a nice help in general-purpose PvE, but he's not essential. On the PvP side, of course, mobility is king, and his 2 factions are very popular, and rush boxes like enablers like Werner, so there are a lot of situations where he could be useful in an Apex box. With a guard-ignoring skill in his back pocket, even if it's not the most powerful one, he still poses a threat that can't be ignored. For availability, he's not on the upcoming banner schedule, meaning he won't be headlining a banner until late April at the very earliest. Okay, finally we have Patsyr. Patsyr is a demon assassin succubus whose gimmick is that she has a bunch of bonuses against non-female heroes. Her talent gives her up to plus 30% int and 30% damage reduction against those unfortunate victims. When she damages a foe, they have a 20% greater chance to take a critical hit. Her unique helm, coming to global servers in January, gives her +1 mobility if there are any non-female units on the enemy's team, and inflicts that boosted crit chance against one random nearby enemy after she takes action. Her 3-cost skill is a 3-line AoE attack that also has a fun passive component that permanently disables all non-female enemies' passive skills if she dies. She's a member of Dark Reincarnation, buffed by Bozel and Licorice, and Langrisser Reincarnation, buffed by Ares and Hilda. For bonds, she unlocks the attack bond for the upcoming new character Cortez, and she needs Bozel for her defensive bond and Licorice for her attack bond. For content, she's on faction for Leviar in the Eternal Temple, and a key component of the top scoring teams against Fenrir and Sleipnir in Ancient Beckoning. Even as low as 4-star, her talent is just that helpful to the rest of your team. Unlike the other two characters, she seems less likely to make a big splash in PvP, although that always comes with the caveat that a unit being niche doesn't mean they're useless, it just means they have a small place where they fit in. Dedicated players who are prepared to put her in a certain kind of box for a specific purpose will certainly be able to get some good use out of her. Alright, so here's the quick and dirty. We have Mariel, who's a hybrid healer and DPS playmaker. She has an Act Again and Guard Ignore combo when she switches modes, and she unlocks the defensive bond for Suzette. We have Werner, who's a mobility booster with a Guard Ignoring attack. He unlocks the important defensive bond for Hilda. And we have Patsyr, who gets strong bonuses, but only against certain units. She's a new meta option for Fenrir and Sleipnir, and she unlocks the attack bond for Cortez. So that brings us to the notes for Noobs. I think we all know the drill by now, so let's just cut into it. Mariel is pretty good, mostly for PvP. Werner is a bit easier to put to work in PvP, he makes everyone go fast. And one of the 2 top PvP tanks needs him for her tanking bond. Patsyr is probably more useful on the PvE side, particularly in 2 Ancient Beckoning fights. So, finally, just my usual reminder about upcoming banners. Landius, Yulia, and Jugler, and Lanford, Shelfaniel, and Virash Destiny banners are coming up next week. And then we have got a little bit of a conundrum. That would normally be the end of this Echo of Light cycle, but this particular cycle is scheduled to last an extra week for some reason. The cutoff date in the Echo of Light menu here shows a date that's actually a week into the next cycle on the predicted banner schedule. So what banner could be filling that extra week? Unfortunately, we don't know for sure, and it's hard to make predictions. Maybe the Gerald and Layla banner with Night of Mystery and Ilusha that went missing a couple of months ago, maybe that'll finally surface? Could it be alongside a potential appearance by that missing Gerald and Layla event and the Maid Narm skin? It's very unlikely that they would bump the Build-A-Banner workshop ahead, since that's part of its own major update, so the assets would need to be patched in. And it's also unlikely that they'd give us a week without any banners at all over the holidays. So it could be something fun and unexpected. It could also be something unexpected and disappointing. If anything, this means we're going to have to be waiting an extra week for the launch of Wikigrisser, just because of how the next Echo of Light schedule will line up. So again, we'll have to wait and see. Anyway, on that speculative note, that's it for this episode. I hope you found this video and these summaries helpful enough to warrant a little thumbs up, and as always, thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next Should You Summon. Extra special thanks, of course, go out to our Langrisser tier channel members for generously supporting the channel directly. Levitt, Derek Gunderson, William Householder, Kate Soon, Jared Portela, Eden Seal, Titan Bradicus, and Shara Ilimerius.